If you're watching from the United States or the United Kingdom, stop scrolling for just a second, because this is not just another love story. This is the kind of love that survives betrayal, distance, pride, and the kind of secrets that could destroy two hearts forever. And before we begin, make sure you subscribe right now, because stories like this, raw, emotional, unforgettable, are exactly why this channel exists, and you don't want to miss the next one. Marta and Durán were not supposed to last. That's what everyone said when they first fell in love in the golden heat of a late Spanish summer, when the streets of Seville shimmered and the scent of orange blossoms floated through the narrow alleyways like a blessing. Marta was fire-wrapped in silk, fiercely independent, sharp-witted, and guarded by years of disappointment that had taught her never to give her whole heart to anyone. Durán, on the other hand, was calm water hiding dangerous depth, a man of few words, steady hands, and eyes that seemed to see beyond excuses straight into truth. They met by accident at a small art gallery where Marta's photography was being exhibited for the first time. She stood near her work pretending not to care whether anyone stopped to look, while inside she was counting every glance, every whisper. Durán lingered longer than anyone else. He didn't compliment her immediately. He asked questions, about the shadows in her images, about the loneliness behind the smiles she captured. That was the moment she noticed him. Not because he praised her, but because he understood her. Their first conversation lasted 3 hours. Their first kiss happened 2 nights later under a balcony strung with fading festival lights. It felt inevitable. It felt dangerous. Within months, they were inseparable. They built rituals, Sunday morning coffee in chipped ceramic mugs, late-night walks along the river, arguments about films that always ended in laughter. Marta had never allowed someone into her routine so completely, and Durán had never imagined he could love someone who challenged him at every turn. But love is never tested in the easy days. The first crack appeared when Durán received an offer to expand his family's struggling construction business into Madrid. It was everything he had worked for, a chance to prove himself, to secure stability, to step out of his father's shadow. The move would mean distance, at least temporarily. Marta congratulated him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She had just been offered an international photography residency in London, her own dream, years in the making. Neither wanted to be the one who asked the other to stay. So they did what proud lovers do, they promised distance wouldn't change anything. For a while, it didn't. Flights back and forth, long video calls, whispered, "I miss you," messages at 2 a.m. But distance doesn't shout when it begins to erode something, it whispers. Durán became consumed with deadlines, investors, responsibilities. Marta found herself surrounded by new artists, new admirers, new attention that made her feel visible in ways she hadn't expected. One evening in London, after a gallery opening filled with champagne and praise, a fellow photographer named Elias walked her home. He didn't cross a line, but he lingered close enough to blur it. Marta didn't tell Durán. Back in Madrid, Durán's ex-girlfriend Lucia reappeared, now a corporate lawyer representing one of his potential investors. Their meetings were professional, but rumors have a way of growing legs. Someone sent Marta a photo of Durán and Lucia seated together at dinner. The angle was intimate. The explanation came later, but doubt had already taken root. They argued over video call for the first time, real anger, sharp and defensive. "Do you trust me or not?" he demanded. "I'm trying to," she replied, and that was worse. Months passed like that, love still present but strained, like a rope pulled too tight. Then came the night that changed everything. Marta returned early from an event, exhausted and emotionally frayed, only to find Elias waiting outside her flat with a confession: he was in love with her. She told him she loved someone else, but the vulnerability of the moment, the loneliness, the distance, the uncertainty, made her hesitate a second too long before closing the door. That hesitation haunted her. Meanwhile, Durán discovered that Lucia's firm was planning to manipulate the contract terms in a way that would leave his family's business vulnerable. When he confronted her, she retaliated by implying there had once been more between them than there truly had. The gossip reached Marta before his explanation did. The next time they saw each other in person, the reunion was not soft. It was explosive. Accusations flew. "Maybe we've changed," Marta whispered at one point, tears threatening but pride holding them back. "Or maybe we're just scared," Durán replied. They broke up that night, not with shouting, but with exhausted silence. The kind that feels final. Weeks turned into months. Marta threw herself into her art, producing her most powerful series yet, photographs capturing lovers separated by glass, by distance, by their own reflections. The exhibit was titled, Almost. It gained attention across Europe. Durán expanded the business successfully but felt no joy in the achievement. Every milestone felt incomplete. Then fate intervened in the most unexpected way. Marta's father suffered a mild heart attack back in Seville. She returned immediately. Durán heard through mutual friends and showed up at the hospital without telling her. When she saw him standing there, tired, thinner, eyes still carrying the same depth, something inside her shifted. There was no dramatic speech. He simply said, "You don't have to do this alone." And she realized that despite everything, he had always been the one who stayed when it mattered. During those days at the hospital, they spoke more honestly than ever before. Marta admitted her fear of abandonment, how success sometimes felt like a shield against being left. Durán confessed his insecurity, that her brilliance intimidated him, that he worried she would outgrow him. They laughed at the irony. Both had been afraid of losing the other, and in trying to protect themselves, they almost did. But love doesn't automatically repair itself. Trust had to be rebuilt deliberately. They chose not to rush back into old patterns. Durán spent more time in Seville, restructuring his company so he wouldn't be trapped in Madrid. Marta turned down a long-term New York offer, not for him, but because she realized she didn't want to chase every opportunity at the expense of roots. Slowly, deliberately, they dated each other again. First dinners, long conversations, honest check-ins, and then came the twist neither expected. Lucia, angry over losing the contract and perhaps still nursing old feelings, leaked falsified documents suggesting financial misconduct in Durán's company. An investigation was launched. Investors panicked. The business he had rebuilt was suddenly at risk. Marta watched him crumble under pressure, watched the man who had always seemed unshakable doubt himself. This time, she didn't step back. She used her growing platform and connections to help uncover the truth, documenting inconsistencies, reaching out to legal contacts she'd met in London. It was Marta who found the evidence proving the documents had been altered. It was Marta who stood beside him publicly when the scandal broke as a lie. When Lucia's scheme was exposed, the damage had already been done, but something else had solidified. They were no longer two individuals protecting their own fears. They were a team. The ordeal changed them. Durán learned vulnerability was not weakness. Marta learned commitment did not mean confinement. A year later, on the anniversary of their first meeting at the gallery, Durán recreated that evening. He rented the same space, filled it with enlarged prints from her Almost series, and added one final photograph at the end. A new image he had secretly commissioned, a candid shot of them walking hand in hand outside the hospital months before, unaware they were being photographed by a friend. The caption beneath it read, "Always." When Marta turned to him, tears finally free to fall without pride blocking them, he didn't kneel immediately. He said, "I don't want almost. I want always. But only if you choose it freely." She laughed through her tears and answered before he could finish asking. Their wedding was not extravagant. It was intimate, filled with sunlight and the scent of orange blossoms just like the summer they met. But even marriage did not make their story simple. Love, they learned, is not a single victory but a series of daily choices. There were still disagreements, still moments of doubt, still ambitions to balance. Yet every challenge after that felt different, because they had faced the worst, the distance, the rumors, the betrayal, the fear, and chosen each other anyway. Years later, when Marta's photography gained international acclaim and Durán's company expanded responsibly and ethically, journalists often asked them the secret to lasting love. Marta would smile and say, "We stopped trying to win arguments and started trying to understand fears." Durán would add, "And we never let pride speak louder than love." They were, as friends like to say, more in love than ever, not because life had been easy, but because it had been hard and they had endured it together. Their story became less about grand gestures and more about quiet loyalty, less about passion alone and more about partnership. And if you've made it this far, if you've felt even a fraction of what Marta and Durán felt, the doubt, the longing, the relief, then you already know why stories like this matter. Because somewhere out there, someone is choosing between pride and love. Someone is deciding whether to walk away or fight. And sometimes, choosing to stay, choosing to rebuild, creates a love deeper than the one you started with. So subscribe, stay with us, and remember, the greatest love stories aren't the ones without conflict. They're the ones where two imperfect people decide, again and again, to be more in love than ever.